We are now live on Facebook Live and YouTube. So I want to welcome everyone who's joining us today. And logging on as usual, just put a greeting in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And I'd like to welcome you personally, engage with you, discuss, talk, chat, as we do every morning here during lockdown. Welcome to another session of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. I see people are logging on, so that's fantastic. Well done. Just give it a minute or so. Okay, keep on posting in the comments, guys. Keep on posting in the comments. I'm going to welcome you personally in just a moment. Okay, let's respond to your greetings. Good morning, Helen Feinstein and Shirley Feldman. Good morning, Ingrid Seif. Nice to have you online with us today. Good morning, Tracy Mindel. Trying to keep warm. And Mandy Bloch. Thank you, Ruth Kaplan. Thank you for being here and thank you for the feedback for last night. Thank you very much, Ruth Kalmek. Manfred Kalmek, good morning. Aline Dulobis, David Ginsburg, Larry Cohen, Gavin Flax in the house. Hey, Gavin. Thanks for joining. Helen Miller, good morning. Michael Stain, thank you very much. Right, that's the Facebookers who are here. Let's now welcome the YouTubers who have logged on. Shelley Smith, good morning. Dennis Solomon, Stan and Raylene Brask, Boker Tov, Murad Walken, good morning. You hope my study is warm and nice and warm. I really hope so too. Not great. We're okay. Sherilyn Diamond, good morning. Ian Clemenson, thank you very much. Let's see online. Janice Leibowitz is frozen. Yeah, it is frozen. Anyone, Avril Walpert, thank you for joining us. Anyone that's logging on from either out of town, from Cape Town, or from Israel, or from Australia, let us know you're with us. We'd like to hear who's logging on and from where. Share with us a comment or a greeting of some sorts. Hilly Lipworth, good morning. Thanks for joining. Hope you're all doing well and keeping warm. We're about to start our next discussion. Our next chat of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. So join us today. Michael Stain and Larry, I see you guys are enjoying each other's company here. So that's fantastic. It's called Chavruta learning. It's better than even learning by yourselves. Right, let's get going for today. So, I see on YouTube it's getting busy here. So let's see YouTube over here. Stephen Herr, thanks for the greetings. We're learning Nishmat, your mother, Esther Bat Moshe. Vega Sega, good morning. You watched it later. Good. Hello, Norman Stain. You're back again. Fantastic. Stephen Herr, thanks for the feedback of last night. Appreciate that. You look forward to the next one on Sunday night. Yeah, we've got an exciting event coming up on Sunday night. Jenny Lichtenstein, good morning. Thank you very much. Good. Now, Michael Stain has two Chavrutot here this morning. You've got Larry Cohen and your dad, Norman Stain. So you're all learning together. All right, we're going to get going. We've got over 35 participants here this morning, and some of you are even more than one or two. So close to 35 to 40 viewers between and YouTube. So welcome aboard, and good to have you online with us this morning. We're going to get going. We're going to get going. And good morning, Shalom Triga. Great. I'm happy you enjoyed last night. Fantastic. Boker Tov, Robert Levy. Great. I love your feedback, guys. Keep the feedback coming. Keep your messages coming. That's the fuel that keeps us going. So I appreciate that. Thank you. So I've been thinking regarding righteous individuals. Many people point fingers. Thank you, Arnold Orkin. You're watching. Thank you. Shadi Stang, good morning. It's getting busy here. Fantastic. So many people point fingers. We point fingers to those who are righteous, so to speak, or those who we expect more of. And we assume, or we expect of them, a high caliber and a high standard. Lyndon Jaime Drew, good morning. Mandy Bloch, thank you very much. Appreciate the message. So when it comes to those righteous individuals, or those people that we seem to expect more of, we have high expectations of them. And we point fingers to say, well, why aren't they living up to our expectations? Take, for example, the religious Jews of Bnei Brak, or the religious Jews of Mea She'arim, or the religious Jews of Borough Park. People are so quick to point fingers. They're so righteous. They're so holy. They're dressed in such holy garb and wear hats and beards and jackets and suits. And automatically, naturally, we have high expectations of them. Especially now during the Corona lockdown, many headlines were written about the religious communities with accusations. We expect more of you. You're part of the holy crowd. You're part of the holy community. And therefore, you're expected to upkeep a higher standard of living, of morals, of values. Good morning, Bernice Krause. But the truth is, it's not just said about the frum religious communities. We have that expectation of our own teachers. Students expect more of their teachers than anyone else because the teachers are responsible for their behavior, their conduct, their values. And so when a teacher is not performing or not behaving appropriately, fingers are pointed. The same thing can be said with regards to parents. Children have high expectations of their parents. And when parents are not acting appropriately, not behaving appropriately, children have what to say and have high expectations of their parents than anyone else. Because anyone that falls under the category of righteous or holy or moral, ethical, we have higher expectations of them. But at the end of the day, we know very well that not everyone, and even the kosher, and even the righteous, and even the moral, and even the ethical, are not angels. They're not angels. And they make mistakes, and they have temptations, and they have an evil inclination. They may be called righteous or moral or ethical because the majority of time they're in control of themselves. But nobody should convince themselves that anybody is a malach or an angel. Yes, I know we'll say that our children and our grandchildren, mainly the grandchildren more than children, are malachim, are angels. No one's an angel. Not the frum people of Mea She'arim or Borough Park or Bnei Brak. Not our teachers and not our parents are not angels. And that's okay. People make mistakes along the way. People do fall and transgress along the way. That's okay. I want to welcome you all here for another session of daily inspiration, daily learning for lockdown inspiration. We've got 40 of you logged on. There's more because some of you are even 2. So it's called 45 of you logged on between Facebook and YouTube this morning. It's fantastic to have you all here. If you'd like to share your greetings and your welcome to one and all, put it in the chat. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to do the same. I'd love to engage with you. I hope you keep warm and let's get going. So what does it mean? What it means is that not everybody is perfect. Not everyone is an angel. We are human beings and human beings make mistakes. The problem is that we as a society, we as a civilization are not very forgiving. And therefore, when a politician, good morning, David Seif on YouTube, it was difficult to find a way to join. That doesn't make sense. David, are you on the Shul Corona Care WhatsApp group? If you're on the Shul Corona Care WhatsApp group, every morning I send out a direct link which goes straight to this video. So David, just let me know. Otherwise, we'll add you to the group and make sure you get the direct link. It's very easy. It's now YouTube.com/Rabbi Stern/live. And on Facebook, it's YouTube.com/Rabbi Stern/live. And that takes you directly to this platform where we are right now. So David, let me know. I'd be happy to assist you. So we're just back to our righteous people, our leaders, our mentors, those who are supposed to be promoting morality and ethics and values and Torah and Judaism and Jewish standards. We have high expectations of them. We have to recognize that they're not angels. They do make mistakes. And we have to be able to forgive them for those mistakes. And that's the problem with society. Society doesn't have forgiving in its vocabulary. We have such high expectations. Oh no. I think I've logged out. Oh boy. Hold on one second. YouTubers, just stay with me for a second. Okay, apologies. I've just got a... Okay, I've just made... Gosh, give us a second, please, while the Facebook is logged back on again. I've got a problem here with Facebook. Please bear with me. David Seif. David. Here's the link, David, to answer your question. Here's the link. David, that's the YouTube link you need. Okay, I'm just going to wait for those of you to log back into Facebook. Thanks, guys. I see you all logging back on. Apologies for that. Yes, thank you. We'll just give the Facebookers a bit of time to get back on. There we go. Keep it coming, guys. Keep it coming. Okay, the numbers are picking up. YouTubers, just hang in there with us. Okay, great. All right. I'm going to get going again. Hopefully our Facebookers will get back on because we had a nice crowd there before. YouTube is much more stable and reliable for these purposes. Yes, Stan, you're absolutely right. Okay, I'm going to get going. So we're talking about higher standards and how society is not forgiving. We're not forgiving of our leaders. We're not forgiving of our politicians. We're not forgiving of the righteous, quote unquote, or the frum, or the religious. And we have to realize that ultimately everyone's human. And ultimately, we're not malachim and not angels. And therefore, we can't have expectations of anyone to be perfect. Where do we see this? Let me tell you what inspired this conversation. What inspired this conversation is the story of the spies in this week's Parsha Shlach. Because the story of the spies is exactly this story. It's talking about Anoshim. Rashi teaches us that Anoshim is righteous people. They were righteous people. They were not sinners of Israel. They were not the rebel rousers of Korach. But the people of the story of the spies were Anoshim Kesherim. They were holy and righteous people. Hi, Felicia Jenks. I see your comment coming through now, Felicia. So, Felicia, just close that video and come in to the next live video. You'll see it on Facebook. So anyone else that may be trying to figure out what's going on, we've lost the first connection on Facebook. It's time to log into the next connection on Facebook. Okay, so look at the Meraglim, the story of the spies. The story of the spies is a story of Anoshim Kesherim. They're righteous people. And yet, they made a very grave mistake. But what this shows us is that it's possible. It's possible for Anoshim Kesherim, for righteous people, to make the mistake. These righteous people were chosen because they were righteous. They were moral. They were ethical. Moshe Rabbeinu hoped and relied on them, that he could rely on them to go into Canaan, go into Israel, and do what they needed to do in order to find and explore the land. And yet they failed. They made a huge mistake. And that's a bit of a wake-up call for society to realize that even Anoshim Kesherim, even the righteous among us, even the leaders among us, even our parents or our teachers can make mistakes. If the spies can make mistakes, even they can make mistakes, because ultimately we're human. Yet, what needs to be done, good morning, Dennis, what needs to be done is we need to understand why the mistake was done. What happened at that point in time? What went wrong? Because if we don't reflect and we don't look back at that experience, we can't just say, oh, they're not angels, or they're not perfect and people make mistakes. We can't just say that, because we've got to learn from that experience. People are allowed to make mistakes, and we have to be forgiving of those mistakes. But we have to use that opportunity to actually grow from that and see what went wrong. What did they do wrong? What can we learn going forward? What can we do better in the future? And the same thing is regarding the spies. They were Anoshim Kesherim. Nobody should ever say that they were wicked people. Well, they went in wicked ways, but they were righteous people. They were moral people. Very good, Stan. So Stan Brad's comment is spot on, and it ties into what I was just saying now, is that we have to reflect and clarify and figure out what went wrong and what can be improved in the future. And your point is so valid. Stan writes on YouTube, is the problem not that people do not acknowledge and apologize for their mistakes? Exactly. Had more people acknowledged and apologized for mistakes, very good, then we would be more accepting and more forgiving. I agree with you, Stan, is that we try and justify ourselves. As parents, as educators, as political leaders and community leaders, we try and justify ourselves. If only we were to acknowledge and apologize, there may be more forgiveness in society. I think one of the reasons why maybe people don't acknowledge or apologize is because they're scared. They're scared of their reputation. They're scared of what the community will do or say. It's almost like the chicken or the egg. What came first? Is it the misjudgment or quick judgment of the community that prevents people from acknowledging and apologizing for wrong? Or is it the fact that people don't acknowledge and don't apologize that makes society so judgmental? Stan, that's an interesting one. Which order is it? Stephen Hurst says, could it be that the spies did not want to lose their jobs? Well, Stephen, they definitely botched up. There's no chance they were going to keep their jobs after what they had done. Ian Clemenson, we are too quick to complain and judge others. True. It does tie into Stan Brask's point. Ian and Stan, I know that both of you are partners, learning partners in our Tanya Shiurim on Shabbos mornings when we're at shul, which we miss dearly. But your points are interesting to start comparing the two. Who's at fault? Is society at fault for being too judgmental? Or are leaders at fault for not acknowledging or apologizing for a mistake? That'll be an interesting debate. And that's, I think, the egg or the chicken and the egg that I mentioned earlier. What comes first? Who's guilty first? Society or leaders? Which one is it? Anyway, getting back to our spies. So we need to reflect and look back at those episodes and see what went wrong. And the same thing I want to do with regards to the spies. If they were anoshim kasherim, if they were righteous people, if they were ethical, moral people, and leaders within society, within the community, we've got to figure out what went wrong. We've got to figure out what they did. And that's why just to say, a wicked act, they spoke wrongly and badly about the promised land of Israel, just to say that doesn't make sense. How could they be wicked people who spoke morally, who spoke badly and negatively about Israel? They were righteous tzaddikim. They were righteous people. How could they? How could they end up in such a mess, convincing the nation of not to go into the land? Sounds so strange, so odd. So let me share with you there are many different insights here into what could have gone wrong. Good morning, Gary Sachs. Let me mention what could have gone wrong between them, between the spies. So the Hasidic perspective brought down by the Hasidic masters is that in fact they were not wicked and they did not have any wicked intention either. That wasn't their plan at all. What was the mistake of the spies? The mistake of the spies was that they were too comfortable in the desert. And in the desert is where they wanted to stay. They wanted to stay in it because that's where it was comfortable for them. We don't want to go into Israel. Not because God can't take over the Canaanites. Sure he can. Not because it's too scary. That's all the narrative, or what seems like the narrative. The Hasidic masters explain a revolutionary concept that they were so righteous, they were so holy, that environment where they were, the environment of the desert where they were, and how they were so comfortable there, and enjoying the environment, enjoying the atmosphere, benefiting from God's beautiful sustenance and help and assistance. That's where they wanted to stay. Going into Egypt, going into Canaan, going to Israel was going to be too difficult for them. And so we'd rather stay in the desert, because in the desert we can be holy. In the desert we can be spiritual. In the desert we can learn Torah. In the desert we don't have to work our land and build society and civilization. That's not necessary, because in the desert it's all we have. And this, tell us the masters, the Hasidic masters, is the mistake of the spies. They didn't have bad intention. They had wrong intention. They weren't evil. They weren't wicked. They were righteous people making a mistake. That can happen. Righteous people making a mistake. They were righteous people who preferred to stay in the desert. That's where they wanted to be. Why they want to be in the desert? Because in the desert, you don't have to worry about anything. God was taking care of them. In the land of Israel, that's where it gets scary. In the land of Israel, it's heavy work to build society and build civilization, and start working the field, to start building their communities. That's scary. So they said, we'd rather stay in the desert, because in the desert we can learn, we can daven, we can sit at 10:30 in the morning and have Zoom calls and Facebook calls. There's nothing to run to. There's no worries in the world. I'm joking. But that's what their feeling was, because in that environment, they'd be holy and spiritual. You know, we compare Yosef HaTzadik, Yosef to his brothers, and those were the two extremes. Yosef's brothers, the sons of Jacob, the sons of Yaakov, were in fact shepherds. Why were they shepherds? Because they believed that as shepherds working in the field, that's where they're going to have peace and quiet. That's where they're going to be able to daven and learn and connect to God in a very, very free way without any pressure at all. And so they were shepherds. And so were our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They were all shepherds. Because if you're a shepherd in the field, you got plenty of time in your hands. You can daven there and learn there and do whatever you like there. Meditation and hitbodedut and isolation. Whatever you need is available out in the field. Yosef was very different. Yosef's approach was, because he was thrown into Egypt, and then he became viceroy of Egypt, and he remained Yosef HaTzadik, the righteous Yosef, because Yosef was one who went into business. He went into the corporate. He was working in the big world, and there he was able to remain righteous. Very, very different to his brothers. His brothers were in the fields, and he was in the business and politics. Hi, Dave Block. Joan and I are attending your desert tour. Oh, what's a desert tour? Let me know, Dave. Okay. Now that debate between the brothers of Yosef and the other tribes is exactly what took place with the spies. They made the same mistake, or they made that was the same thinking. Just like the forefathers were always shepherds, just like the brothers of Yosef were always shepherds, they too wanted to remain as shepherds. They too wanted to remain in the desert, because in the desert they can learn, they can daven, they can be spiritual, they can be holy. And that was the mistake of the Meraglim. That was a mistake of the spies. And that's what we need to reflect on and think about. Because God doesn't want us to stay in our comfort zones. Yes, it may be that in a particular circumstance, a particular environment, I am a better Jew. It may be that when I'm in the desert, I'm a better Jew. I'm more focused. It could be that if I was to go into Canaan, I would find it too difficult. But Hashem says, it's not about what's easier or harder. This is the mistake of the Meraglim, or the spies. It's not about what's easier or harder. It's about what God has in mind and what he wants us to accomplish. That's the bottom line. And if God wants us to go into Canaan and build up a civilization and a society, we've got to embrace it, even if there'll come compromises along the way. With our lives too. It may be at this particular point in time, it would be easier for us to be in shul like normal. To have our shiurim in shul and to have our davening in shul. That could be what got easier for us. But obviously, God has other plans. Obviously, God wants us to be better Jews who are learning and davening and doing good deeds and tzedakah and chesed and kindness. As challenging as it is at home, that's where I want you to do it. Because if you're able to do it at home, you've accomplished in God's mind maybe something greater. Maybe God's telling us, don't sit back in your comfort zone. Like the new color jersey. Oh, thank you, Rabbi Avton. Nice to have you online with us. And thank you for the session last night. So these are some of my thoughts with regards to the righteous people, the righteous leaders of the spies, and where they went wrong. What was their mistake? Their mistake was that the comfort zone was too comfortable for them. The mistake was that they were scared of taking on new resolutions, new commitments. They saw God rigid in a box, limited to a specific circumstance, a particular space. They weren't able to see beyond that. And therefore they told the Jewish people, rather stay in the desert. What must we go into Canaan for? Canaan is disturbing, it's hard, it's difficult. We're going to have so many worries and so many bothers. Who wants that? Let's just stay in the midbar, stay in the desert. It's more comfortable for us. That's the mistake. They weren't wicked. They weren't Rishoim. They were Anoshim Kesherim. They were righteous people. And the truth is they had a righteous claim. It'll be easier to serve God in the desert. But that's what the mistake was. Hashem was telling them, even when I throw you into quarantine, even when I put you into lockdown, even when I close your shuls, even when I take you into Canaan, yes, all that comes with difficult circumstance. That's where I want you to be the righteous person. That's where I want you to be committed to me. And so I end with this point, and please feel free to share your comments on either Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching. Let me just conclude and say that whenever someone who we have higher expectations of, maybe parents or siblings or teachers or educators or politicians, two things need to happen. And that answers Ian's point and Stan's point. Number one, we have to be able to acknowledge wrong and to apologize. No one is wicked or bad. We make mistakes and misjudgments. And when those misjudgments are made, as difficult and sensitive as it is, we've got to acknowledge and apologize our wrongdoings. And point number two, Ian, we can't be too quick to complain or to judge. We've got to be accepting. We've got to be forgiving. Let's unpack the story. Let's see what went wrong. What did the spies do wrong? Let's learn from their experiences and try to implement it in our lives too. Before I conclude for today, I'd like to ask you all to, if you have any questions, Helen Feinstein, thank you very much. Any questions you'd like to share with us, please do so in the comments. I'd be happy to take them. It's been a fantastic morning again. Thank you for joining us for daily learning and daily inspiration. We've had a great crowd, 30 to 40 people throughout YouTube and Facebook. Apologies to our Facebookers for the log out of the last video. That's technology for you. YouTube's definitely more stable in that regard. Nonetheless, I thank you for being here with me. You'll catch me again tomorrow morning, 10:30 on YouTube and Facebook. In the meantime, keep safe, keep sane, and keep spiritual. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you, Cheryl and Diamond, for your comments.